Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics on Random. Egberto Willies, your host. Yes, we're back, and we found the problem. We think we found half of the problem was ours, half of the problem was on the other side of the connection, but worked until late to do it. And then I did the show at 11 something at night to make sure that we had our repertoire together. Folks, welcome aboard, Bridge MCP. Yes, I was up late. I had to issue some particular commands to the display card, which had the accelerator turned off, and that is why sometimes you saw the jiggly stuff. Now, when you saw the loss of connection, that wasn't the card, that was the actual redistribution of the we have a company that redistribute this to all the different networks, and that they were having problems themselves. So we had two birds to hit, and we didn't know which one it was. It turns out it was both of them. So Bridge MCP, welcome aboard. Bruce Pollard, welcome aboard. E2247, hi Bridge, have a great visit. And let's see, AVQ is with us again with all the nomenclature. Egberto, did you figure out the problem with your live stream? I did. I'm going to repeat yesterday's news along with today's. Oh, you're going to kill me, but I love you. California recall. CBS News projects no vote wins recall election. 67.5 says no recall. 32.5 say recall. Don't be happy about this. There are 2.5 million Trumpsters in California. That's kind of nuts. California is supposed to be a true blue state, but this is a third of their population who have fallen to the cult of personality. No, they're just Republicans, and that's what they do. It is amazing the kind of calculus that works behind that. Also, he says, no time for idiots. Howard Stern slams Joe Rogan for taking horse dewormer over COVID-19 vaccine. When polio was going around and vaccine was developed, the U.S. went to patriotism route. Take the vaccine, make your country stronger. There was no pushback. It is amazing. Look, I'm not qualified enough to talk about the dewormer because I do know that it does have a few human needs. I just know it's not, from every research that's done so far, it's not for COVID, and what these guys are doing is dangerous. What Mickey Minaj is doing is dangerous. All these people are a danger to your health. Governor Ron DeSantis let a man falsely claim the COVID-19 vaccine changes your RNA during an anti-vaccine mandate press conference in Florida, and he stood there like a little sissy saying absolutely nothing. You know why? Because he wants to give plausible deniability. How bad do Republicans have to be? Curious if anyone remembers that time in 2008 when John McCain had a town hall and a woman called Obama an Arab, and John McCain corrected her immediately. We've lost the sense of the loyal opposition. Exactly. We have lost the loyal opposition. The people who would come and say, no, this is how things really are. Continuing with Michael Rudnin, Met Gala, multiple arrests made as large crowds of BIM protesters gather outside fashion event. Nonviolent protest is being criminalized when it's in locations inconvenient for those who wield power. BLM, Black Lives Matter, Met Gala. Fact check, false claim that income tax was intended to be temporary in 1913. Right libertarians have been lying about taxes over a century. Taxes upheld the general welfare. See Article 1, Section 8, and were made permanent by the Amendment 16. Short version, paying taxes is patriotic, and those with the money have to pay the most because they also use the most resources. I mean, people think that, okay, because they have a lot of money, they're doing the people who don't have a lot of money a favor. As I explained in my book, How to Make America Utopia, the amount of money that this economic system awards you is not equivalent to your actual worth to the society. In other words, a stockbroker makes billions of dollars. Some of them make millions of dollars. And the truth of the matter is their effectiveness for society, what they contribute to society, doesn't come close to what a doctor does, doesn't come close to what a lawyer does, doesn't come close to what an engineer does, doesn't close to what a garbage man does. But they make more money, so they pay more taxes. Is it because then that somehow they're doing us a favor? Absolutely not. And folks, that is what I talk about in a particular chapter in here that talk about worth. We cannot associate our worth with our income. A lot of people like to associate worth with income and wealth. Do not do it. Do not associate worth and income. Because teachers, are, to me, is one of the most benevolent professions, the most important profession, bar none. Teachers, that is. Why? Because they are the ones that move societal knowledge forward. They are the ones that move intelligence forward. Yet they are the ones that are least paid in our whole economy of professionals. So your worth is not determined by your income or your wealth. We have been taught to think that way, but we should not. We should absolutely not think that way. That's why I love my garbage men. We go out there, the other day I had a whole lot of plants out there that I needed to get rid of. A whole bunch because the wind came out and I had some overgrown over the bayou, and my friend came over here and we cut down a ton of trees. And I had a whole big stack of things and they only took a few. And then I went out there to the garbage guy and said, come on, man, I'm out there doing all kind of politics for all of us to make sure that all of us get better, da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm making my case. He said, well, we can't really do that. And then after he realized that I was one of the for real folks in the neighborhood, he said, hey, man, I tell you what, keep it right here. I will be back next. I will be the driver back when the truck has more room. These trucks have a limit. And he said, when I come back, I'm going to take it all up for you, okay? I'll make sure the truck have enough space to take it all up. I said, okay, hermano, muchas gracias. And then I go inside. And when they came to bring up, there was a ton of stuff to move. When they came out there, I went out there and I was throwing this into the back of the truck with them. All of us throwing all this stuff in the back of the truck, And one of the times I lift up the stuff to throw in the back of the truck, and bam, it fell on the ground because I didn't have enough energy to lift it up. These guys are small and strong. Anyway, so they're laughing at me. So I told them, hey, hold on. I ran inside and I went and got a whole bunch of Cokes and chips and all of that. And I said, hey, man, thank you very much. And gave them all this stuff. And then I slapped $25 into to the guy and said, hey, I can't give you any more than that. I'm not a software guy anymore, but you know what? Thank you very much for helping it. Please divide it equally among you guys and go buy yourselves a coffee or something. All right, let me tell you something, guys. This is important. Your job does not determine your worth. Your education does not determine your worth. Your income, your humanity, and what you do with it to the maximal of what you are doing, what you like to do. That is your worth. And I've learned that. I've got to be honest with you. I had to learn that. I had to internalize that. But I learned it. The greatest killer in New Orleans wasn't hurricane. It was the heat. I heard you. The combination of global warming and the crumbling infrastructure. 2 articles, same response. California wildflowers close Sequoia National Park. I hope you don't burn those big, masterful trees that are thousands of years old. Not a single G20 country is in line with the Paris Accord. Of course, they're capitalists. All like answered that already. Brigitte B.D. Pollard, welcome aboard. Breeze. As so, it was shaky from no acceleration. Yes. The part where you had that. But when you lost connection, it was the other thing. All right, let's see. E2247. He's crazy. He's crazy. Pelosi said to Millie. Yeah, I heard that one. I heard that one. Michael says, I haven't checked my notifications for the last week and a half. Missed yesterday's show. What happened afterwards is I did the show at 11 something at night. And it sent out a notification. It also sent out emails and all of that, which I forgot to turn off the automation. So some people got mad at me that they got 2 emails for the day. I am so sorry. Forgive me. All right. Let's see. What else have we got here? What else? Let's see. Michael Rudnin. No, that's not to me. Let's see. Inexcusable that the Woodward, Costa, Happel, Milley did not reveal these facts to the Senate impeachment trial process. Inexcusable that Senate in trial refused to. They had enough to impeach the guy. And that would have changed the discussion, honestly. if Milley had come out and said that during the revelation, they would have, the way the right wing machine works is they would have made it now an impeachment on Milley instead of not impeachment, can't impeach Milley, fire. I mean, it would have been mess. Impeachment process was before many books, but yes, agree. I hear you. The ducks that quack, then they doesn't. Trumpolini pay taxes personal. We know he doesn't. The duck that quacks, I paid almost 5 times the $750. I understand he paid, says the duck that quacks. Of course, all of us pay more taxes than Donald Trump. Okay, AVQ says the duck that quacks. Trump paid plenty of taxes in other nations, but Trump's been evading taxes in the U.S. for decades. All right, Paul Fleming says ATL checking in, and of course, Masticator is back. Egberto loves teachers because they are all indoctrination our kids with Marxist BS. That's not true, but I know you wanted me to read it, so I read it for you, my brother. Peggy Lopez, hi all, just home from a busy morning. Peggy, I saw you on last night when I came on at 11 something, Peggy. Thank you for being there. I know you probably just stepped in and said, hell, I'm going to bed. Para ver quién más está aquí. I want to bankrupt him personally here, just like all his LLCs. I know what you mean. Rose Williams says, hi, everyone. She's back. Everyone tells Rose hello. Hey, look, I'm going to start calling Biden. And I know a lot of you are going to take exception, especially my most progressive brethren is going to take exception. But I'm going to start calling him a progressive and neoliberal clothing because I am starting to hear some keywords that are getting to me. But I want to play something that Biden said today. I was late coming to get all the show together because I wanted to stitch a lot of what he said. It was a very long speech and I needed to cut it down. I wanted to stitch it. And here is what he had to say. So check this out. And then vamos a tomarlo en el otro lado. We'll then take it on the other side. Let me go ahead and make sure I'm going to play the right thing. Lately, I've been playing the wrong thing. There we go.
I'm not out to punish anyone. I'm a capitalist. If you can make $1 million or $1 billion, that's great. God bless you. All I'm asking is you pay your fair share. The top 1%, for example, evade an estimated $160 billion in taxes that they owe each year. Not new taxes, taxes that they owe. 55 most profitable corporations in America paid zero in federal income taxes, what amounted to $40 billion in profit. My economic plan will change that. Republican friends in Congress don't want to change the law. My Republican friends are attacking my plan, saying it's big spending. Let me remind you, these are the same folks who just 4 years ago passed the Trump tax cut, totaling almost $2 trillion in tax cuts. A giant giveaway to the largest corporations in the top 1%. And listen to this. Almost none of that $2 trillion tax cut was paid for. It just ballooned the federal deficit. In fact, the unpaid bills racked up by the last administration are projected to increase the national debt by more than $8 trillion. What I'm proposing is totally different from that approach for 3 reasons. First, my plan is paid for because our investments are paid for by making sure that corporations and wealthy Americans pay their fair share. Second, we're not going to raise taxes on anyone making under $400,000. That's a lot of money. The middle class are going to get some tax cuts, some breaks. My plan benefits ordinary Americans, not those at the top who don't need the help. It's a historic middle-class tax cut. Taxes for over 50 million families. My Republican friends are making a different choice, though. Rather protect the tax breaks of those at the very top than give tax breaks to working families. It's that simple. But let me ask you this. Where is it written that all the tax breaks in the American tax code go to corporations and the very top? I think it's enough. I'm tired of it. For me, it's pretty simple. It's about time working people got the tax breaks in this country. That's what my plan does. This is from 15 Nobel laureates in economics. Quote, because this agenda, the one I'm talking about, mine, because this agenda invests in long-term economic capacity and will enhance the ability of more Americans to participate productively in the economy, it will ease long-term inflationary pressures. It will ease it. Let me highlight just a few provisions of my plan. My plan lowers the cost of daycare and childcare and elder care for families. And the added benefit of allowing millions of people, mostly women, who are not able to go back to work because of very young family members or elderly people they're taking care of. allow them to go back to work. It's estimated in the millions can't go back. It lowers healthcare premiums for millions of families. It lowers prescription drug costs by giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices. And it strengthens Medicare by adding dental, vision, and hearing coverage for if you're on Medicare. It also extends a tax cut for families with kids that we passed in the American Rescue Plan in March. All of this will mean thousands of dollars in savings for the average American family on some of the toughest and most important bills they have to pay every month. My Republican friends talk a lot about inflation, but if you want to talk about actually lowering the cost of living for people in this country, my plan does just that. By strengthening the capacity of our economy, we'll also reduce inflationary pressures over the long run. Here's something else my plan does. It confronts the crisis of extreme weather events that we're seeing all around us and around the world, but just here in America. We see it everywhere. We can't wait to act. Extreme weather, just last year, cost the American public $99 billion in damage. And unfortunately, we're likely to break that record this year. Now we have to act, and we have to act fast. And my plan does that. Let me end with this. This pandemic has been god-awful for so many reasons, but it does present us with an opportunity to build an economy that gives working people a fair shot this time. We can restore some sanity and fairness to our tax code. We can make the investments that we know are long overdue in this nation. That's exactly what my bipartisan infrastructure plan does. Investments in roads, bridges, highways, clean water in every home and every school, universal broadband, quality, affordable places for families to live. And we can invest in our people, giving our families a little help with their toughest expenses, like daycare, childcare, elder care, prescription drugs, healthcare, preparing our young people to compete against any country in the world with preschool and community college. This is an opportunity to be the nation we know we can be. A nation where all of us, not just those at the top, are getting to share the benefits of a growing economy in the years ahead. Let's not squander this moment trying to preserve an economy that hasn't worked too well for Americans for a long time. Let's not look backward, just trying to rebuild what we had. Let's look forward together as one America, not to build back, but to build back better.
All right, I'm going to explain neoliberal in a little bit, Ms. Lopez. But for those of you that are on YouTube, please go ahead and click that thumbs up. I need you to help us get the channel some likes. I understand that there's some new things with the algorithms with the like. So please, if you're on right now, please go ahead and click that thumbs up button right now. If you are on Facebook, please go ahead and like the video, the specific video on our page, facebook.com/politicsandright. Please go ahead and like that video. People are watching it all over. They don't only watch it on our page, but they watch it on other places where it's shared. So please go ahead and do it on our page, facebook.com/politicsandright. Please go ahead and click the like button. Again, if you are on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up on the video. We need that so kindly. Thank you, appreciate it. A neoliberal is somebody who absolutely believes in what people like to call free market capitalism. By the way, capitalism isn't really free market at all. You know, I've explained all of that in my book, How to Make America Utopia. It is a fallacy. They have to make you believe that the market is free so that you can go for all the shenanigans that occurs under capitalism. It's not true. It's a big lie. And the reason it's a big lie, we can quantify that it's a big lie. Capitalism is a lying engine. Just remember that. That is a fact. You have to have you have to be invited in, etc., etc., etc. But that's for another day. And also, it believes in things. It's a person also who believe in strong deregulation. They believe in free this thing called free market economics and all of that. It's just a fraud. So whenever we talk somebody about a neoliberal, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about that person that believe in those types of policies. Okay. policies that are a distinct failure. Again, folks, if you're just joining us on YouTube, please click that thumbs up button. We really need that to get your support. All right, let's continue with, before I continue with anything else, let's see if I have anything that I need to answer right away. Eric Hayes says this is one reason why there is a crowd on the hospital system, as they're firing people that put their lives on the line daily for sick people. This policy to get rid of people is so wrong, especially in an essential area of need. Do you hear of the mandates going to White House or other upper areas? I don't know. Eric, sometimes look, it's difficult sometimes, my dear friend. I love you, okay? But it's difficult. It's difficult that you make yourself so less intelligent from the news that you get. Let's go ahead and interpret that statement. And the reason I'm spending time to interpret that statement is that statement can kill. And it goes as follows. One, the reason why hospitals want their employees vaccinated is that they're coming in touch with a lot of other people, vaccinated and unvaccinated alike. And the last thing we need in the hospital is for the doctors retransmitting this virus that they may get on the outside of the hospital to other people in the hospital. So therefore, if you want to work in a hospital environment, simply get a vaccine or don't work in a hospital environment. Because the truth of the matter is, I don't want to go to a hospital with unvaccinated nurses, with unvaccinated custodians, etc., because I may be going to a hospital where I will get infected. That's numero uno. And who should be liable for that? The hospital. Numero dos, it is a plumb lie to believe that because 3 or 4 or 10% of healthcare workers are not vaccinated, that somehow that is what's creating the lack of care. That is a quantifiable lie. If you want the truth, look into the real numbers. It's a quantifiable lie. The reason why the hospitals are busting by the seams, the reason why we are having to now ration care is because of the unvaccinated people coming in to be on ventilators and taking up space that mostly vaccinated people don't. What else are they doing? They are causing people with cancer to have their treatments delayed. They're causing people with diabetes to have their treatments delayed. They are simply a stress on the healthcare system, and it has nothing to do with hospitals firing people. That is on the margins. The reality is simple. Stop trying to find answers from the right wing, because they lead you over a cliff. They are criminally insane. I am sorry. The right wing machine that knows better. The right wing machine that knows better, where even Fox News requires all its people to be vaccinated. Do they advertise that when you watch Fox News? All these people require you to be vaccinated. Do they tell you that? They don't tell you that. But it's their requirement. And we have the document that shows it. Not only that, they force you to work at home. So please, they are into this because they know there is a dumb sect within their realm that will buy up anything that they say. And this has nothing, this is just not a statistic. This is just a fact. But it drives me crazy that such misinformation is out there. Like Nicki Minaj making a silly statement on Twitter that's going to get people killed. Melanie Keelan, welcome aboard. I don't get the notification this evening. I'm so sorry, but I don't know why. I don't have control over that. Want to become famous? By follow. I don't do that. Let's see what else we have here. Government mandates in place of Fed employees and those with work. Michael Rudden says, Twitch spammers making their rounds again. I support Biden or liberals, communists, Marxist, socialists. All three are very different, but you use them interchangeably. I don't use them interchangeably at all. And by the way, I love the way that Biden sounded. Biden sounded like what would be a prototypical democratic socialist in the way he expressed himself. And I love the way he ended. Why don't we leave that economy of the past that has not served us well? Anybody that's watching right now, I ask you so kindly to click on that thumbs up button. under YouTube or that like button on our Facebook page. We need you to do that to keep the algorithm going. It's difficult to get your opinion. It is difficult to get your own opinion, and are they not protected with equipment? No, equipment is fallible. Equipment is fallible. A vaccine protects you completely. There was a time we had no vaccine. The equipment did very well, but still a lot of people in medical industry died. Why did they die? Because you just have to make a simple mistake. We are human and we make mistake. You take a glove off and you accidentally rub your nose. If you have a vaccine, you take the stuff off and you accidentally rub your nose. The most that you get is you may get infected, you may get sick a little bit, but you won't die. It is simple. You aren't going to get sick. You are vaccinated, right? No. If you get vaccinated, you can still get sick. And that is with any vaccine. The idea is you are less likely to get sick. You are less likely to die by 98%. If somebody tells me I have a 98% chance of living, there are certain surgeries that you have don't give you a 98% chance of living after the surgery. Come on, guys. Rose Williams says, Eric, honestly, what else should a hospital administration do? It's common sense. Yes, it is common sense. It is very common sense. Bruce says, how would you classify investment brokers? Are 401k brokers different from stock brokers who make money investing middle class dollars? No. A 401k person who takes care of you and makes a salary, I have no problem with it. If he's making a commission off of what he's doing for you, I have a big problem with it because they have a tendency to direct your dollars into investments where they can maximize their own income. So in other words, they may be working for you, but they are also they may be taking on short-term, putting you into something that makes them short-term gain, but in the long term doesn't give you a lot of gain. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of things like that to pick up. But stockbrokers in general, none of those people earn the money commensurate with what they get based on what they do. In fact, many a times, if you went to a class for 1 day, you could be just as good as the average investment broker or person who sells stocks. If you went to school for probably a month, based on what your profile is, you could probably be better than 90% of those guys that are out there. Remember, all of us that are in school, and I really don't mean this to be condescending, but the people that went into the sciences, or if they decided to go into the business portion of how stocks work, I'm not talking about the portion that is not scientific, but in the scientific portion of how stocks work, they would do very, very, very well. But anyhow, folks, let me go ahead and play the Mike Levitin video for today. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. We have a great guest today. I haven't seen him, I think, since the Democracy Convention in Madison, Wisconsin. Anyhow, today we are honored to have Michael Levitin. Is a journalist and co-founder, editor of the Occupied Wall Street Journal. He started as a reporter covering the Cochabamba water war in 2000 for the English language newspaper Bolivian Times. He earned his master's degree from the Columbia Graduate School of Journalism and later worked as a freelance correspondent in Barcelona and Berlin, covering politics, culture, and climate change. He's appeared at The Atlantic, Guardian, Financial Times. So look, everywhere. We have a true scholar with us today who formed a very important part of the Occupy Wall Street movement. Michael Levitin, welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today?
Egberto, pleasure to be here, man.
Very good. Look, man, you've started from the start of the movement, as you explained in your book. I mean, when they got to Sagadi Park, you were there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the genesis of the Occupy movement?
All right, for everyone who's been meticulously following it this week, given that we're on the 10-year anniversary, I presume not everyone has been thinking about it. I sure have for many years now. It was September 17th, 10 years ago, this week, coming this Friday, I wasn't there at the very start of the movement. I came the week after it began, the second Saturday of the movement, which in fact was the Saturday when Occupy blew up, when the famous pepper spray cop nailed a couple of white women in the face with bright pepper spray, and they fell down to the ground and shrieking, and it caused a sensation. I think the fact that they were a couple of young white women protesting peacefully, somehow the nation saw this, and the video went viral. Occupy Wall Street took off, and really the movement was born from that moment, the second Saturday of the movement. And I moved into the park like so many people. I was supposed to take a flight the next day, 2 days later, to go back to Berlin, actually, which you introduced me as having history there. I wasn't intending to stay in New York, but the showing up there, the moment that I saw and the intensity that I sort of could immediately perceive of all of these young people getting together in a way I'd never seen protesters unite and sort of organize in a very in a much more serious way, frankly, than I'd ever seen activism in this country appear before. And I knew something quite different was happening. And I helped start this newspaper that, and everything else followed from there. The movement was
Tell folks where they can find that it's not a blog, it's actually a full-blown paper.
Oh, the paper's long gone. It was a paper of the moment. The
No,
Occupied.
not I'm talking about your website.
Oh, my website, michaellevitin.com. My book, Generation Occupy, just appeared yesterday through Counterpoint Press. And this story really, I think a lot of people now with the 10-year anniversary are reanalyzing or trying to remember what Occupy got wrong, why it disappeared so quickly, what was its message. What really has obsessed me and kind of and kept me in the game all these years, because I did continue to edit and write and follow the trends of the movements through occupy.com. That was a different site. That was different from the Occupied Wall Street Journal, which once it ran out of money, we stopped printing copies. We ran about 500,000 copies of that newspaper over 6 months, over 5 or 6 editions. But this story that I've told now in the book is really looking at the impacts. I'm much more interested not in what Occupy got wrong as a kind of a chaotic, colorful, disorganized, structureless, leaderless movement. You can give it all of those qualifiers and say that it could have done better, it could have done this. Yeah, it faded from view, and we know for many reasons it did. But what I really have been interested in and studying and is the many ripples and the waves that it set off politically, in activism, in our economy, and in labor, in workers recognizing their rights and everything we've seen. I'd be glad to talk in any specifics that you want to, but that's really what I've been trying to get at, is what has this decade brought us that may not have emerged in this way? Would we have a $3.5 trillion budget bill that essentially is looking to balance out the scales and diminish inequality in profound ways and put clean energy infrastructure with hundreds of billions of dollars? I mean, would we have the current moment we're in? Not that we'd succeeded yet, not that we've passed any significant legislation, but would we be here without Occupy? Would Bernie Sanders have been Bernie? Would we have had AOC? Would many things, would the fight for 15 have occurred? And so many things that have sprung from it. So that's what this book is addressing.
I think what you just said is so important. Let's not concentrate on the things that we did or got wrong. Let's concentrate on the things that we actually got right, because in the aggregate, Occupy Wall Street changed this country. It changed the progressive movement. It gave validity to so much. And some of the issues that people talk about is the movement was so white, right? It didn't represent America. But what was so interesting about the movement is that those same white kids that got engaged are the kids that would have been elsewhere, not thinking of this sort of thing that Occupy represents. So you have a part where you talk about Occupy activism. I'm going out of scope here
Yeah.
with your book, but Occupy activism, that made a lot of people who otherwise would not have been activists, activists for the good of us all. Why don't you explain it in that context?
Second here. Doors opening in a house filled with other people. The Occupy activism, the whole notion of activism, in the Atlantic article I just wrote and published this
Yes.
week, it leads with the activism idea. In my book, it comes later because I need to get these bigger economic and
Right.
political ideas out. But I think fundamentally, there's simply, we don't have this previous decade that we've just witnessed, in a sense, without Occupy. My case is that Occupy remade and reinvented activism for a whole generation, that it made protesting cool again. If you think of, like the 60s and the 70s, protesting went out. It wasn't cool. It was older white liberals. It was people out holding signs and trying to get signatures at little, miniature rallies, or it was the anti-globalization protests and people sort of trying to spur this larger workers movement and get young people energized. And it really was beginning. But then, as we remember, the Iraq War came along and sort of pulled the rug out. It was a big protest movement and people really tried to stop it, but they weren't, alas, effective. And we went to war, and when we saw what happened in the last couple of decades of those imperial, adventures overseas, catastrophic failures. So protests weren't able to stop that. What Occupy did, it's like people rediscovered their courage in a profound way, and they went right to the core of the issue. They protested an issue you're not supposed to protest. They said capitalism and the system overall is the problem. They named the systemic crisis of inequality and the corporate corruption of our politics in these issues that really, frankly, since the New Deal, since the massive protests of the 30s that forced FDR to create the New Deal, Americans weren't out in the streets protesting capitalism and the moral bankruptcy of our economic system. So what Occupy did is it spurred and it pointed a finger at the 1%, which then became this sort of translatable 1%. The climate movement adopted that message. Occupiers, as you say, moved in, the young white, largely white, liberal from whatever college educated class of occupiers. They transitioned and helped lead helped turn into the climate movement, which again looked at the 1%. It's the 1% fossil fuel industry and the lobbyists and the CEOs who are corrupting Washington politics and obstructing change to help save our planet. And as you said, with the whiteness, a lot of occupiers, with the conversations I had with people, they made a correction in the post-Occupy era. They joined Black Lives Matter. They saw where this racial analysis, racial justice was missing. And I think you and I talked about that several years ago as I was interviewing people for the book. And you are, all full credit disclosure, Egberto, you have lines in the book. And I'm glad you got your piece in there, because it was a really important point that it was missing the racial justice analysis. It was a really economic justice, but really wasn't talking to the 99%, because people of color largely weren't participating and didn't see themselves in the movement. But it evolved, and Black Lives Matter took so much that Occupy helped generate in terms of the use of technology, how to spread viral memes, how to do a decentralized nationwide social movement that could catch fire instantly overnight with the same young generation. Of course, different issues and different priorities and different structure and leader. They had actual spokespeople, actual people who helped steer the message at Black Lives Matter. They made many corrections, having studied from what Occupy got wrong. They consciously said, we're not going to be this structureless, leaderless thing. We're going to do it this way to get this concrete message across about police violence. But from Black Lives Matter, you see it all the way through. Standing Rock, the fight to, defeat the water, the pipeline that was going to go through the Sioux Reservation in North Dakota. Massive protest using so many tactics of Occupy. And you see it in the wave of social movements, the Me Too movement, Would we have been able to take down the giant moguls, the white 1% who are, abusing their power, the Harvey Weinsteins of the world? Would we have been able really to kind of shatter that wall had Occupy not sort of delegitimized the 1%? And it goes on and on to the Women's March, the way it was decentralized and organized to rise up against Trump and initiate the resistance. Indivisible, the really vocal, organized protests.
Yes.
Occupy just gave a fire and it sort of lit the nation, this generation that's had enough. The climate generation, the March for Our Lives, the students in Parkland who initiated the March for Our Lives, and millions of people marched to end gun violence. And guess what? The NRA is seeing its last powerful days. Those guys, since the Parkland students sort of hit the hammer against that shattered their impenetrable wall, NRA is not likely to ever be the same. And in terms of its influence on our government. So we see these impacts, and when people say Occupy was a failure, Occupy
no.
left, all you have to do is look at where we are today as a culture, our politics of resistance and protest, and you see that, yes, it initiated this new era.
Let me tell you, I've been to several of the Occupies, from Occupies, DC, Washington, DC, San Diego, Houston, King, everywhere. And what you saw in there is that people finally, I don't want to make this a generational issue, but for a long time under Reaganomics, the baby boom generation kind of got complacent, and they allowed him to do quite a bit. And that Occupy generation came about and said, no más. I don't know if you remember Roberto Mano de Piedra Durán from Panama, that boxer. They used to call him the hands of stone. When he was fighting with Leonard, he said, no more, no more, no más. And it was like the Occupy generation said, it's gonna be no more. And what Occupy, in my humble opinion, started, and I think you've articulated perfectly in your book. And folks, you got to get that book, Generation Occupy, Reawakening America, Reawakening America Democracy by Michael Levitin. And it's not that he has several quotes that I have in that book why I'm telling you to buy it, folks. I'm telling you to get this book because this is not only a refresher of all that we did in the Occupy movement in the early 2010s. This is actually a primer of what needs to continue. So check that book out, Generation Occupy, Reawakening America, American Democracy. I love the way that you split the book up. I love the way that you did it. I think it's important because and folks, look at the table of contents. Occupy generation, what it is. Occupy economy, Occupy politics, Occupy climate, Occupy labor, Occupy activism, technology, world, future. Something that we all have to do if we are going to remake America that works for us all. And you encompassed all of that in the description of what occurred after 10 years and made it clear. No, Occupy was not a failure. Occupy was the seedling. Go ahead.
Was that a question?
Yeah, no, I wanted you to expand on that because you did such a great job in the book that like you stated very at first. We're not going to talk about all the things Occupy got wrong. Sure. Damn it. Everybody gets every movement. There are wrong things in it.
So many people, the great activists who died in this last year, as I was putting the book.
CC.
Kevin Zeese.
Yes, that's my buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, what wonderful man and an incredible life force to the left movement.
Both he and his wife, yeah.
And Margaret Flowers, of course. I'm sure many people who watch your show are familiar with them and their group Popular Resistance. But something Kevin told me, I had the you call it luck or whatever. I got to speak with him really in depth in an interview for this book, along with other 50 other people I interviewed or so. But what he said was really a lasting message, and some other people echoed him, which is that social movements they rarely succeed overnight. Did the civil rights movement succeed overnight?
We're still working on it.
You work on it, and this idea that really you don't even begin to see lasting changes from a movement, maybe for a decade, maybe for a generation, the way that Z, Sinha, and other people have talked about, you don't get to see real changes from a movement, maybe for 30 years or 40, when you really see the structural, look at this
Right.
budget bill. If Congress and the Democrats and if the progressive voice wins and the Bernie movement can put, what Bernie started, he has been shepherding this bill through Congress, but it's like, if they can do this and we can get that agenda pushed through and turned into law, that will look a lot more like an actual win for something like Occupy. Not that you can credit it, not that Occupy
I well,
results in anything.
I beg to differ. I do credit Occupy. I think when I talk about, like I said, both of us, we were all over the country when in the different from when it transitioned to places and like Democracy for America or Democracy for America. What was it in Madison?
Well,
Democracy.
the Madison was
Democracy Convention, where all of us got together, and I mean, the thing about it is, absent Occupy, the impetus to do the things that all these other organizations feel they can do now would not
yeah.
have been there.
And yes, and the people now who are driving, I think the big thing that if you want, some people say, well, give me some concrete, give me, what did Occupy really do? If you say Occupy changed things, okay, we got activism, we have a new generation of young people who are completely motivated and turned on to protest and to resistance, real live. This is existential. This is an issue for me. I got to go out in the streets for climate, for gun safety, for defense of democracy when it came to Trump. But if you want to talk concrete, who is essentially steering the Democratic Party in the last few years? It isn't the old Clinton
No,
Democrats.
it's
It's not
not.
the Obama Democrats. It's the Elizabeth Warrens, the Bernie
Exactly.
Sanders, and the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and her
Exactly.
whole train of Justice Democrat aligned people who essentially are retilting, rebalancing, trying to rebalance the scales of inequality and give back to the people and get rid of corporate funding in elections, or at least run campaigns that don't rely. I mean, it transformed our politics. It gave Bernie Sanders, as many people told me, I think you probably did in our interview too, we wouldn't have had Bernie Sanders, the all popular, meteoric, take over the airwaves candidate of 2015 in the primaries in 2016, had Occupy not laid the ground and given us this inequality message. The billionaire class. You think America was ready to hear an old social democratic socialist from Vermont rail against the billionaire class and talk about the obscene corporate greed? It was Occupy that got people prepared for that. And of course, Bernie laid the ground for AOC, and we're off to the start of a new generation of politics.
Well, look, I love this book. Why don't I ask this last question for to everybody? Tell me, what would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
Hmm. Um, Geez, Egberto, there's
I do
quite
it
a
all the
bit.
time, you know?
Do it all the time. Uh, I guess, well, something that would be interesting about this was how to put, you said you liked how the story was put together, or how the book was put together. Um, I think an interesting part of doing this in terms of the structure is how to tell a story. Occupy told a story, right? The whole thing that Occupy got right, just to conclude on that message and that movement issue, is it was able to tell an old story that's been as old as civilization itself, right? Inequality, the pharaohs, the kings, the Mesopotamia. You go back to, you want to name your place, it's always been the mass of people under the few elites who got the grain and who've got the gold and who've, aren't distributing it fairly, right? We all know that. But to make that iconic, uh, eternal, timeless story fresh again in the current context, to tell a narrative
That's it.
that punctured our otherwise totally distracted and diluted, and everybody's interests are diverse. It grabbed hold. It like took America by the throat and said, wait, you're going to listen to us because we're telling you a story that really matters. And for me to tell this story, which is so kind of complex, I think it took a combination of removing myself a bit to try to be objective and like a journalist and an observer, but I also put myself in the book because and I'm a character in it, because I feel it's important to show people that, um, everyday people, myself included, anyone who shows up at something, you just got to show up and participate. That was sort of what got me to Occupy. Like if I'd sort of just continued my plans and gotten on a plane and left, I just wouldn't have been part of this whole movement. And the last decade would have been quite different for me. But like this idea that regular people can do, irregular or ordinary people can do extraordinary things, I think is a message that even this book kind of confirms. Because I'm a journalist, but I just showed up and put myself in there. And I hope that the way that I convey and I'm able to tell this story, reaches people. And yes, like you say, for future movements, that I hope young people take this story that is a decade old, and they might have only been 10 years old, not even able to comprehend much when Occupy was going on. But today they are our leader, they are our activists, they're our college students, they're our young unemployed, they're the people who need to mobilize. And I do hope they learn from this story, from what Occupy got wrong and improve on it, and from what it did so well, because we need 2.0 right now.
Michael Levitin, a good friend of mine, journalist, and the author of Generation Occupy, Reawakening American Democracy. Folks, you've got to get the book. Those of us that want to make a difference, we got to understand how it was done and how we need to go forward and do it. Michael, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics and Right.
Wonderful talking. Very good. Keep it going. Always.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Yes, it wasn't that it was infiltrated as much as it was. This is a Bridge MCP. I'm going to have to take off a little bit early. Folks, if you're just getting here, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up on YouTube and a like on Facebook. We need you so badly to do that now. So please go ahead and do that for me. I need to have you do that for me. Again, if you're just joining us, or if you've joined us before but haven't given us a thumbs up on YouTube, please go ahead and do that. Okay, let me tell you brief. After Occupy, I joined a couple of other groups like the 99% and all these other groups that were trying to fill that space. And ultimately, Occupy fell because in certain camps, the municipal governments went in and busted them up, tore them down. In other places, they kind of fell on their own device, their own miscommunication and all of that. Here in Houston, we had a whole lot of different iterations. We created one that could last here with what we call Occupy Kingwood, a sustainable Occupy. And the one that we formed here, we did it on a weekly basis as opposed to trying to do a full Occupy. But anyhow, let's see if there are any. Let me just salute a few new people that came in. Patrick's Time, welcome aboard. Dev Danny, welcome aboard. Rose William, I think I saluted you. I saw some other new folks in here. Let me see if I can scroll to them. Let's see. Undefined, I don't know who you are, but thank you for coming here several times. Masticator, welcome aboard. Who else is here? If I didn't call your name and you want to be singled out, go ahead. Jessica Taylor, welcome aboard. The Duck That Quacks, I think I got you. I'm just kind of scrolling up. I won't be able to take a look at these guys right now. Real quickly, if you're just joining us, please click on that join button. Become a member. Carl Cox, Occupy didn't fail. Occupy changed. Occupy mutate. That is what we're talking about with Brother Michael Levitin there. We evolved into a lot of different spaces. And all that you see occurring in the progressive movement today had its genesis in the Occupy movement, where it finally gave us the impetus, the wherewithal to go ahead and say again, we can actually get it done. Folks, if you're just joining us, please click that join button to become a part of our PDR posse. We need you. You can go ahead and get our books at politicsandright.com/books, politicsandright.com/books. You can become a patron. We need patrons. politicsandright.com/patron, politicsandright.com/Patreon. We also look at, politicsandright.com/PayPal, politicsandright.com/PayPal to support us, as well as, if you're not on YouTube and you can't click that join button, click on politicsandright.com/YouTube, politicsandright.com/YouTube. But if you want to know all the different methods in which you can support politicsandright.com, or Politics and Right, go to politicsandright.com/support. We also have a new link, politicsandright.com/TV. that you can share to all your friends and say, hey guys, come here at 3 o'clock or any other time, because all his videos, all his shows and everything is located at that one page. So folks, please go ahead and continue your support for the movement. We just could not do this at all without you. We couldn't do this at all without you. I can't go through all of these messages fast enough. If somebody in the next 30 seconds, if you go ahead and put something in there that you must have an answer for, let me know. Otherwise, just drop me an email at info@politicsdoneright.com, info@politicsdoneright.com. Let's see, I got to get out of here early today because we have some repair people coming in. So my name is Egberto Willies. I thank you so kindly for being here. You know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.